Hello, my friends. Hello. What a day for breaking news. It's insanity. Um, Earlier, a little bit ago, I was just on with Duty Ron, Ed Wallace, excuse me, while I just took a bite of my lunch. And Chad Daybell has been found guilty on all counts. The court is now starting the death penalty phase of the trial. Donald Trump has just been found guilty on all counts. So I'm going to ask the chat to please keep on topic. We're here to talk about Chad Daybell and listen to the victim impact statements. Finally, justice has been served with regard to Chad Daybell and the lives of Tylee, JJ, and his wife, Tammy. Donald Trump has also been convicted on all charges. He has become the first former U.S. president to be convicted on criminal charges. If that is a case that you would like to discuss, please go watch that on another channel. But I just want to try and keep the chat on topic here because this is a very, very sad day for the families of the victims in the Chad Daybell trial. And that is what I am here to cover with you right now. And I'm going to put the court feed just came back. After reading the verdict in the Chad Daybell trial, they gave the jury a break for about an hour to come back and start the death penalty phase of this trial. So the jury is now going to hear from the families of the victims. They're going to read victim impact statements. I just will trigger warn you in advance that these are usually very, very, very sad, very emotional. And I'm not sure exactly who we're going to be hearing from, but I covered the verdict live about an hour ago with Duty Ron and Ed Wallace. So if you want to watch the live verdict, you can go back and watch that later over on Duty Ron. They are very dear friends of mine. And he called me to cover it live with him, and I jumped right on at the chance because who doesn't love Duty Ron and Ed? The jury in this case, the Chad Daybell case, which is out of Idaho, has been sequestered, and they will remain sequestered in a hotel during the death penalty phase of this trial. And yes, Lynn Vanderwall, thank you so much. Justice for Tammy, Tylee, and JJ. Now remember, Lori Vallow Daybell is also awaiting trial in Arizona, Maricopa County, for the murders of Charles Vallow, one of her ex-husbands, and her brother, Alex Cox. So there is still one trial to go with regard to this twisted case. And when I was in the Duty Ron chat earlier, one of the commenters said, Chad Daybell is now dark. And really, that was kind of the comment of the day so far. The jury is coming in now. You can see Chad Daybell. This is not great feed. It's Zoom feed. But if you remember when I covered with Duty Ron, the Lori Vallow Daybell trial, it was audio only, no video. So at least they've upgraded to a Zoom feed for Chad trial.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. We are back on the record on case CR 2221-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell. The court notes that earlier this afternoon, the jury returned a verdict of guilty on several counts that are subject to this capital sentencing phase, including in the verdict form counts 1, count 2, count 3, count 4, count 5, and count 6 of the amended indictment. The court at this time then is going to commence with the capital sentencing phase. I'll note that in this case, the jurors have returned, including the juror alternates that are here as well, and the 12 jurors who returned the verdict under Idaho Code 192515, subsection 5B. The court is using the same jury to conduct this phase of sentencing also, and that statute reads that if the defendant's guilt was determined by a jury verdict, the same jury shall hear the special sentencing proceeding. So we are in that special sentencing proceeding. As I mentioned, the jurors are here and present. And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, thank you for continuing your jury service. You've again been seated for your continued service in this case. And that's the matter we're taking up at this time. To give you an idea of just the schedule, the court has some preliminary instructions that are going to be read to you this afternoon. We're going to commence then with further evidence on the sentencing phase starting tomorrow morning after I read these preliminary instructions. And the court's proposal on our typical scheduled plan would be to start at 8:30. Is the state going to be ready to proceed at 8:30 with any impact statements that may be offered?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, that's how we'll run the scheduling at this point then, and I'll inquire as to the jurors going forward. Also, the scheduling we'll have during this phase of the proceedings. They don't need to be limited to the timeframes we've had throughout the trial, including, depending on how long this takes, weekends. So I am essentially leaving up to the jurors their proposed schedule within reason of when we'll work through this proceeding. So the court is going to read some preliminary instructions then to the jurors. And again, you'll receive additional jurors when you retire to deliberate on this part of the case. But for now, the court will just read these and those will be included with you later. So in this case, the defendant in this case has been convicted now of the crimes of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. We will now have a sentencing phase of the trial regarding those offenses. Additional evidence may be presented during the sentencing phase. You should also consider the evidence presented during the trial. Before the death penalty can be considered, the state must prove at least one statutory aggravating circumstance beyond a reasonable doubt. If you unanimously decide that the state has so proven one or more statutory aggravating circumstances, then you must decide whether the imposition of the death penalty would be unjust by weighing all mitigating circumstances against each proven statutory aggravating circumstance. At a separate proceeding, the court will sentence the defendant for other offenses of which you have found the defendant guilty. Instruction number 2. Your duties are to determine the facts, to apply the law set forth in my instruction to those facts, and in this way to decide the case. In so doing, you must follow my instructions regardless of your own opinion of what the law is or should be, or what either side may state the law to be. You must consider them as a whole, not picking out one and disregarding others. The order in which the instructions are given has no significance as to their relative importance. The law requires that your decision be made solely upon the evidence before you. Faithful performance by you of these duties is vital to the administration of justice. In determining the facts, you may consider only the evidence admitted during this trial and during the sentencing phase. The production of evidence in court is governed by rules of law. At times during the sentencing phase, an objection may be made to questions asked a witness or to a witness's answer or to an exhibit. This simply means I'm being asked to decide a particular rule of law. Arguments on the admissibility of evidence are designed to aid the court and not to be considered by you nor affect your deliberations. If I sustain an objection to a question or to an exhibit, the witness may not answer the question or the exhibit may not be considered. Do not attempt to guess what the answer might have been or what the exhibit might have shown. Similarly, if I tell you not to consider a particular statement or exhibit, you should put it out of your mind and not refer to it or rely on it in your later deliberations. During the sentencing phase, I may have to talk with the parties about the rules of law, which should apply in the case. Sometimes that will occur at the bench. Other times you may be excused from the courtroom so that we can discuss those matters. You are not to speculate about any such discussions. They are necessary from time to time and help the sentencing phase run more smoothly. Some of you have probably heard the terms circumstantial evidence, direct evidence, and hearsay evidence. Do not be concerned with those terms. You are to consider all the evidence admitted during the trial and during the sentencing phase. However, the law does not require you to believe all the evidence. As the sole judges of the facts, you must determine what evidence you believe and what weight you attach to it. If any evidence is admitted for a limited purpose, you are not to consider it for any other purpose. There is no magical formula by which one may evaluate testimony. You bring with you to this courtroom all the experience and background of your lives. In your everyday affairs, you determine for yourselves whom you believe, what you believe, and how much weight you attach to what you are told.
That's what I say in every trial. Exactly what the judge just said. Jurors do not leave their common sense at the door. They come in to listen to a trial with their own personal experiences and their own personal history. And that is what they bring into the room with them when they're deciding. For those of you who are just joining, the CHAD Daybell verdict was rendered about, I don't know, maybe 2 hours ago by now. CHAD Daybell has been found guilty on all counts. Guilty for conspiracy in the first degree and grand theft with regard to Ty Lee. Guilty of first degree murder charges with regard to Ty Lee. Guilty on conspiracy in the first degree and grand theft with regard to JJ. Guilty on first degree murder with regard to JJ. Guilty on conspiracy to commit first degree murder on Tammy Daybell, his ex-wife. Guilty on first degree murder charges for the death of Tammy Daybell, and 2 counts of insurance fraud. Guilty. Then the court took a break, and they took a break for about an hour, and they said, we're going right into the death penalty phase of this trial. And here we are. We're watching it live on East Idaho News. This was just a very last minute live stream. I went on very last minute with Dutyron and Ed to go with the verdict live. Dutyron is not able to be here because he had some other obligations, and I said that I would stream this live. So what we are doing now is we're going into the victim impact statements and the death penalty phase of the trial. So what's happening is the jury has been sequestered for, I don't know if they were sequestered. If somebody can clarify this for me in the chat, because I have been neck deep in the Karen Reed trial, covering it live every single day. So I don't know if the jury has been sequestered for the entire 8-week trial or just for deliberations in this case. But in any event, the jury will continue to be sequestered in a hotel until they come to a decision on whether CHAD Daybell will serve life in prison without parole or whether he will be sentenced to the death penalty in Idaho. Nate Eaton was live, Nate Eaton from East Idaho News, and all of the cases that he's been covering, like this one, and Lori Vallow and other cases, said that Idaho has not handed down the death penalty since 2017. And in this part of Idaho, it could have been at least 10 years since the death penalty has been handed down. So the jury will remain sequestered throughout this phase of the trial. And I'm surprised, just for deliberations. Thank you so much, Rassler's mom. Thank you so much. You guys always come in and help me with the info, because you know that there's no way that I can be expected to know everything about every single case. So they've been sequestered for deliberations, which I believe started yesterday. The trial has been 8 weeks long, with an extra week for jury selection, so a total of 9 weeks. The Karen Reed trial is on day 18 with no end in sight. So that is just for comparison purposes. The judge has just said while he's reading these initial instructions with regard to this death penalty phase, that the jury is going to decide their own schedule. If they want to deliberate over the weekend, they can, but they're going to be sequestered to a hotel. And he's reading the initial instructions now. I'm on the East Coast, and it's 2 hours earlier in Idaho. So in Idaho right now, it is almost 3:30. I expect that court will go until at least 4:30, maybe 5. And we may be seeing some victim impact statements today. So right now, the judge is in the middle of reading the instructions to the jury with regard to this phase of the trial. It's surprising that they went right into the death penalty phase immediately the same day, right after the verdict was read. It's not always done that way, with just an hour break, but we're here for it. I went live I didn't even schedule it. I just went on. So if you just got here, you haven't missed very much, except the judge has brought the jury in and he's reading them the instructions with regard to this second phase of the trial. The jury will decide whether or not CHAD Daybell will be sentenced to death or life in prison without parole. So let's go back 6 hours and 7 minutes in deliberation. Thank you very much, Gonzo Mom. The jury also realized when they got into the jury room that they were not provided with one of the sets of instructions with regard to one of the counts. So that tells me that they're paying very, very close attention, that they are taking this case very seriously. Someone asked a question earlier, which I'll address now, that said, hi, Maureen Francis, why is the jury sequestered? I would think that might cause them to rush to a decision. I disagree. I think that this jury is taking their job very seriously. I know that all of you that have ever served on jury duty, and I talk about this a lot on my channel, how important it is to serve on a jury, that people often want to get out of jury duty. And my opinion is go serve, go serve. It is the best gift that you can give to a defendant that is being charged with a crime, is to go serve on a jury and take your job seriously and take that oath seriously, because those are the kind of people that we need as jurors. And I don't think they'll rush, Maureen. I think that they're going to take their time. However long it takes, they are invested in this case. They've been sitting there already for 9 weeks. So I don't know, Cindy, how long it'll be. I expect it'll go probably at least until tomorrow, because it is end of day in Idaho. So let's go back to the judge and just notice the difference in the demeanor of this judge and some judges on some other cases that we're following together. So let's go back to the jury instructions with regard to this penalty phase, the death penalty phase of the trial of Chad Daybell in Idaho.
The same considerations that you use in your everyday dealings in making these decisions are the considerations which you should apply in your deliberations. In deciding what you believe, do not make your decision simply because more witnesses may have testified one way than the other. Your role is to think about the testimony of each witness you hear and decide how much you believe of what the witness had to say. A witness who has special knowledge in a particular matter may give an opinion on that matter. In determining the weight to give such opinion, you should consider the qualifications and credibility of the witnesses and the reasons given for the opinion. You are not bound by such opinion. Give it the weight, if any, to which you deem it entitled. Instruction number 3. It is presumed that no statutory aggravating circumstance exists in this case. This presumption remains throughout the sentencing phase and during your deliberations. The state has the burden of proving the existence of a statutory aggravating circumstance, and that burden remains on the state throughout the sentencing phase. The defendant is not required to prove the absence of any aggravating circumstance, nor is the defendant required to produce any evidence at all. The state must prove the existence of a statutory aggravating circumstance beyond a reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt is not a mere possible or imaginary doubt. It is a doubt based on reason and common sense. It may arise from a careful and impartial consideration of all the evidence or from lack of evidence. If after considering all the evidence you have a reasonable doubt about the defendant's guilt, you must find the defendant not guilty. That in this time then concludes the initial preliminary instructions for the sentencing phase. And the court is going to be in recess then until 8:30 in the morning, when we'll commence with evidence on that phase of the trial. Before we break for the day, does the state have anything further?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Anything further from the defense?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll note then the jurors will remain sequestered during these proceedings, and we'll begin again tomorrow at 8:30. Thank you again for your continued service, and that will conclude our matter for today. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so they are going to continue this tomorrow morning at 8:30. Idaho time. So it'll be 10:30 on the East Coast. Come back with victim impact statements. For those of you who have not seen the verdict read, I will go back and we'll rewind and watch the verdict together. I'm just going to get to the right place. Thank you, Jeff, for your super sticker. Hi, Melanie. What a day. What a day. What a day it is. Chad Daybell. I'm going to rewind so we can watch the verdict together for those of you who have not seen it. I did cover it live with Duty Ron earlier, but we're here and we are not in session again until tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. when they will start with victim impact statements.
CR 22.
This is Judge Boyce.
Okay, we're on the record on case CR 22-21-1623, State of Idaho versus Chad Guy Daybell. The court's been advised that the jury has reached a verdict. The court will note the parties are present. The state's present with Mr. Wood, Ms. Blake, Mr. Wixom, and Ms. Beatty. Mr. Pryor's here representing the defendant, Mr. Daybell. And the court at this time is going to instruct the jurors to please be brought into the courtroom. That will include our alternate jurors as well to be seated. And then I will have the marshal get the verdict form from the jury once they return to the courtroom. So if they can come in at this time, we'll have them brought in.
If you're just joining and have not seen any other news, Donald Trump was found guilty on all charges as well, but let's try and skip that in the chat for now and stay on topic with regard to Chad Daybell and justice for JJ, Tylee, Tammy.
Thank you. Please be seated. All right, the court's going to next just make a reference that there is a courtroom conduct order in effect in this proceeding to remain in effect. So I appreciate everyone complying with that order, as most of you have done throughout the proceedings in this case. At this time, then, the first matter I'd like to take up is to do a roll call of the jury for the record. So, Madam Clerk, if you could please conduct a roll call of our jury to make sure they're all present and properly seated at this time.
This is a replay of the verdict for those who haven't seen it.
Juror number 1, red card number 27. Juror number 2, red card number 219. Juror number 4, red card number 631. Juror number 5, red card number 653. Juror number 7, red card number 752. Juror number 8, red card 1680. Juror number 9, red card number 823. Juror number 10, red card 1358. Juror number 11, red card 1365. Juror number 12, red card 716. Juror number 14, red card 997. And juror number 15, red card 1078.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for conducting the roll call. All right, at this time, I'm next going to inquire from the jury foreperson. Has the jury reached a verdict? All right, thank you. Mr. Bailiff, if you would please retrieve the verdict from the jury foreperson. Thank you. All right, the court has reviewed the verdict form. I'll note that all counts have been properly marked, as well as the verdict form's been properly dated and signed by the foreperson. The next step then is Mr. Daybell, if you and counsel would please rise. I'm going to have the clerk read the verdict.
Chad is in your upper right corner of your screen. Watch him as the verdict is read. That's what I did when I first watched it with Duty Ron.
In the District Court of the 7th Judicial District of the State of Idaho in and for the County of Fremont. State of Idaho Plaintiff versus Chad Guy Daybell Defendant. Case number CR 22211623. Verdict. we, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn to try the above entitled action for our verdict, unanimously answer the questions submitted to us as follows. Question number 1. In regards to count 1 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan and grand theft by deception? Guilty. Question number 2. In regards to count 2 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan? Guilty. Question number 3. In regards to count 3 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow and grand theft by deception? Guilty. Question number 4. In regards to count 4 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow? Guilty. Question number 5. In regards to count 5 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tamara Tammy Daybell? Guilty. Question number 6. In regards to count 6 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of first-degree murder of Tamara Tammy Daybell? Guilty. Question number 7. In regards to count 7 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of insurance fraud? Guilty. Question number 8. In regards to count 8 of the amended indictment, in regards to count 9 of the amended indictment, is Chad Guy Daybell not guilty or guilty of insurance fraud? Guilty. Dated this 30th day of May, 2024, and signed by the presiding juror.
Guilty on all counts for Chad Daybell. I
All right,
thought,
Madam Clerk, thank you for reading the verdict. At this time, I'm just going to collectively ask the jurors, all of you, is this in fact your unanimous verdict on each of those counts? Very well. At this time, I'm going to inquire if the parties wish to have the jury polled. Does the state wish to have the jury polled?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Does the defense, Mr. Pryor, wish to have the jury polled?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Very well.
very, very unusual for the defense not to poll the jury. When is the last time we watched a trial where the defense did not poll the jury? Typically, they want every single juror to get up and say, yes, this is my verdict. Not in this case.
Well, then I'm going to direct the clerk to record the verdict. At this time, then, this does conclude the guilt phase of this trial. Because the defendant has been convicted on counts of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, the state has filed a notice of intent to seek the death penalty, and so a second phase of this trial, called the sentencing phase, will be taking place next. We're going to take a recess at this time for approximately an hour. We will come back on the record and begin with the start of that sentencing phase of the trial. I would like to remind everyone that this courtroom conduct order is still in application throughout these proceedings. Thank you all for complying with that. We are going to take that recess at this time. Mr. Daybell is to remain in custody at this time for the commencement of the sentencing phase. And with that, thank you all.
That is when the court took a break for an hour. And then they came back and we heard them read some instruction. We heard the Judge Boyce read some instructions to the jury. And tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. Idaho time, we'll begin the victim impact statements. If you'd like me to cover that live, let me know and I will do that. There is no Karen Reed trial for the rest of the week. Karen Reed trial will not resume until Monday. There will be, I believe, a half day on Tuesday, although the judge wants to work through lunch. Let me go back to my Karen Reed schedule. There is, some of you in the chat were asking, I have to get back to my calendar. There is no court on Tuesday, I'm sorry. So there will be a full day of court on Monday with perhaps an abbreviated lunch period. There will be no court on Tuesday. This is for Karen Reed. There will be a full day on Wednesday with perhaps an abbreviated lunch and working all the way until 4:30. half day on Thursday, only until 12 p.m., and then no court next Friday. So at this point, the Karen Reed trial is going to go through Labor Day. So if you would like to watch victim impact statements with me tomorrow morning on CHAD Daybell, we can do that tomorrow. It would be 10:30 East Coast time, 8:30 Idaho time. And if you're just joining, the jury is going to be sequestered during this phase, the death penalty phase of this CHAD Daybell trial. There was an interesting interview that Nate Eaton did in between. So let's give him a little FaceTime. If you did not see this already. This was right after the verdict was read. He ran down the stairs of the courthouse.
Of Tylee Ryan, conspiracy to commit the murder of J.J. Vallow, the murders of J.J. Vallow, Tylee Ryan, and Tammy Daybell, and 2 counts of insurance fraud, guilt across the board. This jury deliberated for about 6 hours. They started yesterday afternoon, and the verdict came down, well, before 2 o'clock. We got word around 1:15-ish that a verdict had been reached. We were given the notice that we needed to be ready for that verdict, and it was read at 2 o'clock. The courtroom was packed. I can tell you lots of tears, lots of sniffles as this verdict was read. We walked out in the hallway afterward, and law enforcement officers were crying. They were hugging Larry and Kay Woodcock. Samantha, or Tammy Daybell's father, hugged Larry Woodcock as the two of them cried together. A lot of emotion in that courtroom. This, of course, has been nearly a 5-year ordeal, and these families have waited for this day. CHAD Daybell showed little emotion. And what happens from here is in less than an hour, we'll be back in the courtroom, and the penalty phase of this trial will continue. What does that mean? It means that Tammy Daybell's siblings and her dad have prepared statements that will be read from the stand. They will get to read victim impact statements that basically share how they feel and how this has affected them. CHAD Daybell's children could also read those statements, but they were not in the courtroom today. They were not here. No word if they are coming. And then because this is the penalty phase, the jury will then go back and deliberate if CHAD Daybell should get the death penalty or life in prison.
What do you guys make of the fact that CHAD Daybell's children were not in the courtroom for the reading of the verdict? I find that very interesting.
It's unclear how long that process will happen. I mean, who knows? It could be later today if all the victims go. It could go into tomorrow. It could go through the weekend. But the big news today, if you're just tuning in, CHAD Daybell found guilty of murdering J.J. Vallow, Tylee Ryan, his wife Tammy Daybell in her bed. He's found guilty of conspiracy to commit the murders of JJ, of Tylee, of Tammy, and he's found guilty of 2 counts of insurance fraud. Now, I don't expect that we'll see people coming down here just yet. After Lori Vallow's verdict last year, Larry and Kay Woodcock came down to address the press. I believe that they're going to stay up there until the penalty phase of the verdict happens. And I don't know how long that will last. I have to give you a little behind the scenes look at how this verdict, at least how we found out about it. Earlier this morning, the jury had a question and the court reconvened. The jury was called in, the judge was called in, everybody gathered in the courtroom, and there was part of an instruction that was not included. And the jury had a question about what that particular part of the instruction needed to be. So the judge added a 40.
Yeah, that was interesting. The jurors realized that they were not given one of the jury instructions, and they came out and they asked the court to provide it. Somebody said that there's a news conference starting on East Idaho News, which I have up. So let's check for that since we're here. Looks like they are just setting up for that. So as soon as there's some activity there, I will put it back up on the screen. Nate has been on this. Eileen Taylor says Nate's been on this since the very first news broke. Dude deserves some awards in my opinion. Yeah, He's about to jump on a plane to go to CrimeCon, where a lot of other creators are going to be this weekend. So, isn't that what always happens? You decide to go on vacation, and that's when the verdicts come in. That's when the news breaks. So I think that a lot of people who have been covering this trial throughout may perhaps be en route to Nashville for CrimeCon. Is anybody going to CrimeCon, or is anybody at CrimeCon right now in the chat? Yeah, cameras up, but nothing happening yet with regard to this news conference. Although the waterfall sounds are loud and clear, so let me just put that on mute before it puts some of you to sleep. Anybody who likes to sleep to rain sounds is going to fall asleep. Lisa Valentine says, I wouldn't expect the death penalty phase in a death penalty case would be decided in one afternoon. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But the jury is sequestered, and the judge is going to give them the option to decide their schedule, whether or not they want to continue deliberations over the weekend. If it goes that far, let's see, today is what? I'm losing track of days here, my friends. Today is May 30th, Thursday. So tomorrow is Friday. They will start victim impact statements around 8:30 in the morning. And Nate Eaton did say that it was uncertain whether or not Chad's children would be reading any statements, but that they did have the opportunity to do that. They said that Tammy's siblings and father were going to read statements absolutely tomorrow, so we will cover that together. Jennifer Bossert lives an hour from Nashville and wanted to go, just couldn't make it this year. If you're just tuning in, welcome. We are waiting for the press conference to start outside of Fremont County Court after Chad Daybell has been found guilty by a jury on all counts. 3 first-degree murder charges, as well as 2 insurance fraud counts and 3 counts of conspiracy to commit murder on behalf of each victim, Tylee Ryan, JJ Vallow, and Tammy Daybell. Trump was also found guilty on all counts. Thank you, Jeff Lewis. We're going to stick to this topic today. I am not as up on what's going on with that because I've been neck deep in Karen Reed and I've been covering this today. So I just can't switch topics, but sure, there's a million people out there covering this live right now or covering the Trump verdict live. As you know, New York does not allow cameras in courtrooms. So there were no cameras during that trial, just as there are no cameras in any New York trial. And this may be starting soon. We'll put the volume back on for you. Larry and Kay Woodcock. Get the tissues ready.
1 year later, 1 year, a guilty verdict. It's not over. We're able to breathe. It's a sad day. JJ would have been 12 years old, guys. For what? For what? What has been accomplished by the murder of Charles, a good man, a wonderful man, a great father? Tylee, a young lady that had everything in her life ahead of her. She was beautiful, witty, amazing, intelligent. My little man. Canaan, Todd, Trahan, Joshua, Jackson, Vallow. A 7-year-old autistic child. For what? What did they accomplish? Nothing. What did they do? They destroyed families. Tammy. What did they do? They destroyed a mind that was developing minds, the wonderful minds of children. She loved what she was doing. It's obviously she loved her family. For what? And I'm not going to even put up the 3 words that the prosecution put on the screens, because it's an insult to all of them. I don't even want to say them. But what Chad and Lori can't take from us is our memories. They can't take that. They can't destroy it. They can't erase it. Our memories are what we have. That's what we have left, our memories. Our pictures will fade somewhat. Our memories will fade a little bit. But I think through it all, we will all retain the wonderful memories of what we had and what we lost. I'm happy it's over. And it's 99.9% over. There's one stage left. And I will say this, whatever verdict, whatever sentence the court and the jurors decide on, I will absolutely live with it. I want to thank the jurors. I hope they get help if they need it. They've heard and they've seen things that they can't unhear and they can't unsee. I've seen the photographs. I had to put my hands on JJ in those photographs. I put my hands on Tammy's arms in those photographs. Those photographs and those bruises were made by these. It was not books. It was not falling down. I seen them. I studied them. Tammy, I hope you're teaching kindergarten. I hope you're providing wonderful books to the children. JJ, you're 12 years old. JJ, Papa loves you. JJ, I miss you. But JJ, I will see you one day. Tylee, I hope you have grown to be a beautiful woman. I hope you get and you make everything you wanted to be of yourself. The Lord is with y'all. He is protecting y'all. Judge Boyce, I can't imagine a finer judge to be before in this case than Judge Boyce. I don't think there's one appealable speck of evidence. Prosecution done a mighty job. One piece at a time. They laid the foundation. They spoke well. They spoke clearly. Thank y'all. Mr. Pryor, I want to thank you. I thought you did an admirable job. You had a job to do. I told you years ago, I wanted you to do the best you could. I told all the defense attorneys, do the best you can. That's all we ask. Do the best for your clients. One of the last things, I want to thank the media. The media has been amazing. No one in the media, almost no one in the media has been out of place. A couple that were a little bit out of place, they're not here. This is not what this is about. The media is here to produce a product that justifies everybody. The media has done an outstanding job. I want to thank every one of you. Lastly, the audience that has been here months, day in, day out, away from their home, some away from their children. They go home, and I hope every one of these gentlemen and ladies that have children, you go home, you hug your children. Take lots of photographs. If I had a do-over for the last 5 years, I'd have taken 1 million photographs. Nobody ever anticipates that we're going to lose somebody. Nobody is guaranteed tomorrow. We all know that. Nobody is guaranteed tomorrow. Hug who you want to hug. Tell who you want to tell you love them. Tell them that. Be honest. Just be truthful. And most of all, guys, let's just do the right things. If you see something that's not right, say something. Don't be afraid to speak up. Let's be kind to the people that surround us. Let's be loving to the people that love us. Thank y'all. And turn out the lights. The party's over. Questions? Questions? I forgot to breathe.
I'll repeat the questions to you from the reporters. He said, can you tell us how you felt when the verdict was read aloud?
I did. I realized that I wasn't breathing. I had quit breathing. And I said to myself, you got to breathe. Our wonderful friend Lauren said, do your deep breathing exercise.
It seems like you were whispering to yourself. Was it prayers or thanks?
I did. That's where I forgot to breathe. I was praying. I was praying for a just verdict, and we got it.
Larry, what did you think of Chad Daybell's lack of emotion, lack of reaction, and second stone face?
Larry, what did you think about Chad's lack of emotion? He stood there stone-faced.
I think it's Chad. I think it's how he deals with his issues. I feel sorry that he can't cry. I feel sorry for him that he can't show emotion. As y'all all know, there's not one person here in this wonderful crew of people that we have called family that I don't want a hug. I don't offer a hug. I don't offer a handshake. It's sad when you can't do that. For what? I think if he'd have learned to have done that, maybe none of this would have happened. Show emotion. Tell people you love them. Don't be afraid to not to. One of the last things I want to tell you, we would have never made this without each other. I want y'all to know this is the strongest lady on earth. One of these days, she's going to cry. She hadn't done it in a long time. It's over with. We're going to go back home to Louisiana in the near future. We're going to take our time getting there because we need to stop and smell some roses for a while. We need a chance to look at this beautiful state, this beautiful country, the states that are in between here in Louisiana. Are we?
Are you going to celebrate tonight? Go out to dinner?
I don't know. We haven't made decision yet.
Oh, okay. She's a boss. I just talk and show up. Yes. Somewhere. Where do I know? When do I know? No. Like I said, Kate just says, "Hey, let's go here." I said, "Okay, let's go." There's some people that I'd like to call out. Lauren, you and Dr. John, I don't know what we'd have done without you. My little man Banks, he made my heart heal. I love him so much. I look out here and I'm amazed that y'all are willing to stand up out in the sun and let this old man talk and not say, "That's enough. Y'all shut up. Shut up, old man." But I thank every one of y'all. There's so many that I want to call out. So many friends we've made. They're not friends. Y'all aren't friends anymore. Y'all are our family. And if you ever come to South Louisiana, Shy, I'm going to feed you some crawfish and some etouffee. Thank y'all so much.
I mean, who's not crying after that? heartbreaking. And that is Larry and Kay Woodcock. Larry and Kay Woodcock are the biological grandparents of JJ. And they took care of him until he was 10 months old. Kay's brother is Charles Vallow, who is the fourth husband of Lori Vallow Daybell. And she will be undergoing a trial in Maricopa County, Arizona, related to his murder. I don't know if anybody else is going to be speaking. And it seems not. They've stopped the feed. Well, that was heart-wrenching. Tomorrow morning, victim impact statements will begin at 8:30 Idaho time, which is 10:30 on the East Coast. Jimmy says, if you're not crying, you have no soul. I think in song lyrics, so to hear him quote a song was heartbreaking. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end. Call it a night. And he said in his speech, or the words that he gave after coming out of the courtroom, after the verdict was read, he said, take photographs, hug your kids, because you never know what the last time you're going to see someone is. If you see something, say something, and be kind. And I think that those are words that we can all live by. Chills. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you guys for watching with me. I went live very last minute as soon as I heard the death penalty phase was going to start. We just heard the judge read some instructions to the jury, and then we went back and watched the verdict together again. And then we watched the little press conference that happened when Larry and Kay Woodcock came out of the courthouse with their very, very emotional words. And so, my friends, I will say to you, as I always say, be cool, be kind, be classy. It's not hard, but in the words of Larry Woodcock, be kind. He thanked the media for covering this case and the way that they covered it. And he especially thanked Lauren and Dr. John of Hidden True Crime, who have been on this story and have been so amazing covering this story. And I don't know if they're covering it today, because I don't know if they're on their way to CrimeCon like a lot of creators are, but I know this is running. I will see you tomorrow morning. We will cover this together, and it will be very emotional. So bring your tissues with you. Hug your children. And 7 p.m. Eastern tonight, I will be on LTL True Crime with Brian talking Karen Reed. So that's only in less than an hour. So if you feel so inclined, head on over, hit the bell over at LTL True Crime, where I will be talking with Brian and Jess Machado of Fall River Reporter on Karen Reed in less than 1 hour. So hug your kids, because take lots of pictures. Prayers up for Larry and Kay and for all of the family of JJ, Tylee, and Tammy. Until tomorrow, 4/7. I'll see you soon.